here. Welcome to this special edition of In Perspective. With me this evening here is a special person, former President and former General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, President Donald Ramotar. He is in Berbice and I asked him to appear in this special edition. President Ramotar, welcome to Berbice.
Thank you.
The next
Thanks.
30 minutes or so, I'd like if we could share some of your views on this present situation in our country.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Comrade Ramotar, about a few weeks ago, we have seen the unilateral and constitutional appointment of a person to be chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission. First of all, your view, your thought on it, and what the Constitution says in appointing the chairman of the Elections Commission. That is one, the first part. And the second part is, I know you was there before 1992 when the Carter came into Guyana, and when this formula was, he worked up this formula, and both sides, the PNC and the PPP, accepted this formula. As a result of that, that formula became part of our Constitution. If you could explain for our viewers.
Well, first of all, let me say that the act that the President has done in appointing James Patterson unilaterally as chairman of the Elections Commission is completely unconstitutional. And what the sad thing about it is that the part that he's used, what he used to do this, to create this problem, was really put into the Constitution to avoid much problems. The Constitution says that the chairman of the Elections Commission must be chosen from a list presented to the President by the opposition leader, and that list, they should not be unacceptable to the President. What does it mean? The formula is designed to create a compromise. It's designed that no one will get their own way or the perfect person that they want. Neither the opposition leader will get the person that he probably will be his first choice, nor the President will get the person who he thinks is his first choice. And it will have to be somebody that both of them will have confidence in and to run the Elections Commission. So that is how the formula is geared. And therefore, when this was going into the Constitution, when the Constitution was being rewritten in the 1998-2001 period, there was the argument that if you leave it just like that, then the leader of the opposition can create a constitutional crisis by not presenting a list, and therefore you can't form an Elections Commission. And that was when they put in that clause, that sentence at the bottom. The President can appoint someone if the leader of the opposition does not present a list of candidates to the President. But this is not the case. This is a case where the President has been presented with a list, and even the Chief Justice ruled that he's supposed to present, not every single name on the list should be acceptable to him or unacceptable to him. But as long as there is even one name that is not unacceptable to him, that he should choose. And he has decided not to choose from the list, and to choose an 84-year-old man who obviously has problem with his memory, because he has already forgotten what period. I mean, if you held in the Caribbean, the highest judicial post in the Caribbean is Chief Justice. And if you can't remember when you acted as Chief Justice, that shows that you have problems with your memory, because you were at the very pinnacle of the judicial system.
Right.
And it should be such an important achievement that it's impossible for you to forget that. Mr. Patterson has forgotten. He said he has forgotten when, but the records show, all the records, if you go and Google Chief Justice of Grenada, you will see that Patterson's name does not figure that he was never there either as Chief Justice of Grenada.
So either two things, either he lapsed in memory or he lied.
Or it could be both.
Right. Now, the other thing, as a seasoned politician, even if this position, the chairman of the Elections Commission, now seeing that he's been appointed already by the President, if he does not rescind his decision, what that holds for Guyana as a seasoned politician? Because Why I ask you this question? Especially our supporters, PPP supporters, sometimes are saying that, look, they men go rig this election. And it seems that some of them are losing the kind of interest as a member of this party, as a senior member of this PPP. What will you advise our supporters?
First of all, I would say that you can never lose hope. I mean, Chelly Jagan will give us the greatest example to all Guyanese of a determined man who fought through very much difficulties and who in difficult times, in dark times, he never lost faith in the collective intelligence of the Guyanese people. And so now too, I think that we have to work very hard to ensure that our country should not go back to the period of the 70s and 80s when you had a dictatorship in place and when our country was tremendously destroyed by what the PNC government was doing at the time. Therefore, I think that we have to struggle. The first struggle, I think we have to demand that this is unconstitutional. You know that we've gone to the courts. You our point man in that regard, that you together, you've taken the matter to the court, and that we expect that the court, I think that the situation is so clear that for me, as not being a lawyer, it is so clear to me that I can't see how there can be another interpretation of this. And therefore, we expect that the ruling would be that this is unconstitutional for them to remove Mr. Patterson. Because very, very clear that Mr. Granger, President Granger, has put this man there not to do any work, it's just to fill a seat, because they will do all the manipulation and try to rig these elections. And that is their history. Indeed, I must tell you that I've just seen it on the Demerara Waves, that the President Granger is in Atlanta, Georgia now, and he made a speech and telling the people that they must recall how they got into the government in the 1960s, and how they got into the government in the 1960s is completely dishonorable. I'm very shocked that as a historian, that this man will want to remind people how the PNC got in power in the 1960s when they betrayed the national interest of this country and worked with the CIA and British intelligence when they accepted money from a foreign power to finance strikes and demonstration and create racial division in our country. That is how they got into power. Yeah. And that is what he is telling the people to remember and to glorify. And secondly, he went on to add, and they must remember how they stayed in power. So how did they stay in power? They rigged every election from 1968 right down to 1985 in our country. And they have started that again, because that is why we're in court. Up to now, the elections petition has not been heard. But again, we know about the fictitious statements of polls that were used. So they are glorifying this thing. All the wrongs that they have done, the harm that they have done to this country, they are now that is what they are glorifying in our society at this point in time. So we have to block this before they become entrenched in our society. And we have to be our first step is to hope that the courts are going to feel very confident that the court will rule against, and they have to accept someone from the list presented by the leader of the opposition. Or we have to continue to struggle. We have to take to the streets. We have to do whatever it takes in order to ensure that the 2020 elections will not be rigged.
You mentioned just now about 1964 when the PNC came into power, because they collated with the UF at that time and they went into government with all the kind of rioting and mayhem and killing and things like that. We are witnessing history repeating itself. They went to in government with a coalition. But this very important issue of appointing a chairman was never discussed with their main partner, the AFC, number one. Number two, we are seeing now fragmentation within the AFC. What is your future? How do you see the AFC future within this coalition?
The AFC has no power. Absolutely no power they have within the coalition. The fact that they have joined with the APNU in one single list, that we call it a coalition, but technically it is not a coalition, because they were one list that went to it's not two lists unite to form the government. Right. It's a one single list that the ANC, so Nagamutu and Ramjatan are like two appendage on the list, and they can't do anything. They have no power. Even if they want to resign, they can't bring down the government because all they will do is fill their vacancies that they have. And it's similar to what the PNC did in a slightly different way from 1964 to 1968. I wrote about it last week in my column, that what they did was to bribe people. They created an atmosphere of corruption. This is what created the culture of corruption in our country, because at the very top level of the government, they are bribing members of parliament to cross the floor, including from their own UF partners. I pointed out to the case of Mr. Mohammed Qasim, who was a UF member of parliament, and he was Minister of Works in the coalition government. And when Peter Ligar, who was then the Minister of Finance, said that he could not account for $5 million, Peter Ligar was practically saying that this man is a thief, that he stole the $5 million. Burnham, who was then the Prime Minister, got up in Parliament and said, I authorize the spending. And Mohammed Qasim crossed the floor and gave Burnham the majority that he was looking for to fix the laws so that they could rig the 1968 elections. And this is precisely what we're having now. This time, they're in an even better position because Nagamutu and Ramjatan can't even threaten them. In fact, if you see, they're doing the very opposite. They're upholding and defending all this raping of our constitution and all the racist type of propaganda that has been peddled by the government and the government friends in the society. Nagamutu has now become, using his skills as a journalist, to defend and to promote these things. So they have gone, they have lost completely all their, they have no moral authority anymore within the society. They have no standing within the community, because these are people who claim, and some of them did have a record of fighting against the modern regime, but they have abandoned all of that now, and they're attacking the PPP, who continues to fight to try to promote and to defend democracy and to prevent the deterioration in our country.
Well, this brought me now to the point where last week I saw a news item or a newsletter came out from the ASC saying that you will have a big celebration at Wynn, Moses' home village, where they will mark the 12th anniversary of the AFC. But lo and behold, I understood that the people at Wynn were waiting for him, and he never turned up, and they sent up this lady, Garida Low, at a small function they had with 2 or 3 teams, and people didn't turn out. So the future for the AFC looked very bleak, I think, and think that people now are realizing that they were betrayed.
The AFC have served their purpose to the PNC very well. They serve a purpose of trying to divide people by going and spread false propaganda. They went and talked to workers in the sugar industry and said that they would have given them 20% increase in salary, and now they're shutting their estates down completely. And they're defending that decision now to shut their estate. In fact, there seems to be all kinds of maneuvers taking place. At one time, I know at one time they were preparing to sell the Skeldon estate, and one of the point men involved in selling the Skeldon estate is Nagamutu's son-in-law. He was part of this. So they're all caught up into the whole corruption cycle. They used to accuse us of corruption, and a lot, as I said many times, even on this, sometimes on other programs, I wouldn't say that there was absolutely no corruption under the PPP city government, but we fought it, and we put things in place to fight it, and it was never, from what they said, they've set up 46 commissions of inquiry, spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this, and all they're telling them, they're finding nothing. All they're trying to use is little things in the corner here, violation of this procedure and that procedure, but they can't find any major type of corruption that they have been speaking about. But on the other hand, they are the ones who, since the 60s, as I talk about Mohammed Qasim, what Qasim did, but there were many from the very beginning that they got in government in the 60s too. They became very corrupt. You had a global corruption crisis. Now you have the bond crisis, the bond corruption problem. You have look at already they're beating our constitutional bodies into submission Here they had, I saw in the paper yesterday, when all they're saying that this woman, Wanda Lawrence, doesn't have any culpability in the purchase of more than $600 million of drugs without proper tendering or anything like that. And this is the report that came out from the Public Procurement Commission, which is a nonsense. How could that? I mean, that strains the intelligence of the ordinary man to believe that. And after you had evidence being given, you saw that in the paper. You saw some of the evidence that was given, where they said that she ordered them to go and get the drugs. She herself openly said at some stage that she had to prevent that shortage of drugs from taking place, and yet we see that this is the outcome of it. So we are once more drowned in. It's amazing to see the amount of wealth that these people are accumulating in 2.5 years, 30 months that they have been in government, how much wealth they are accumulating at the moment. You saw the bulletproof cars that they are ordering now to travel not only for the president, but for all kinds of ministers and so on and so forth, spending millions on luxury vehicles, luxury houses, renting house for one minister, even a junior minister, for more than $500,000, violating again some of the principles of the Constitution that you have. So this group of people, they are really now totally disregarding our Constitution. Our Constitution, the way they treat the Constitution, they treat it as just another piece of paper and not as a supreme law of the country, and doing as they please to enrich themselves within the society and continue to spread false propaganda and trying to deflect and to hide their nefarious activity by continuing to try to blame the PPP and the PPP Civic for their action.
Then you got this Dublin Park, this big...
this is another massive corruption, big corruption thing that has taken place there, and not a word. The president who speaks about fighting corruption and so forth, not a word about these, no explanation about these things that are given as they continue to rape the treasury of our country. Look, the Auditor General report just came out, and he pointed out that they violate the whole Constitution by the way they treat the contingency fund. They are using the contingency fund. It's in our Constitution how these things should be spent on emergency, on unforeseen things, and they're spending it on routine things and doing what they please. This is the money they took to spend on the Dublin Park. A lot of that money they took out to spend on Dublin Park as they continue to raid our treasury and to enrich themselves.
And citizens should not forget too about the big salary increases they took.
Oh yes, I mean, of course, that gives you an idea of the mentality of the people that we're dealing with. First of all, it is myself first, myself second, and myself third, as far as they are concerned. Without turning a straw, these people give themselves 50% increase in salaries. And this is what they're talking about, caring for workers. And when they can't give workers anything, nothing proper, they give the workers, and look at how they're treating the sugar workers. These are workers who had kept this country on their shoulders. They took billions of dollars out of the sugar industry with a levy, the PNC. PPP took off the levy from the sugar industry. Took billions of dollars out of it. And the problem that I've spoken about this several times, the problems in the sugar industry, it's not caused by the workers, and even I would say it's not caused by as level of the management. This was caused by an act outside of the country where the price of sugar went down by 36%. That is what has caused the problem, and it obviously means that the industry would need assistance to reorganize itself. Some level of reorganization was needed, and also some more investment into more capital type of investment to bring down the cost of production. But this government has abandoned all of that. When we were in government, we know we had problems with the Skeleton factory, but look at the figures in 2015. And you can see that we were solving the problem. 2015, Skeldon reached more than 30,000 tons of sugar and achieved this target. In fact, it happened just when the government changed and they were giving themselves the credit that it was because of them that Skeldon performed so well. But they did nothing to continue the maintenance because they had a problem to destroy the industry and to sell it off and to make a lot of money for themselves in other corrupt deals and corrupt practices.
This brought me now to the point where I saw in the Auditor General report, because there were, on social media, there is a video going around with Moses saying that he never took a salary increase under the PPP government, he never traveled first class and things like that. We know for a fact that how much money was spent on his house, car and things. But I see the Auditor General flag that for the last 2 years he expended over $20 million to travel around the world.
Yeah, and I think Moses is totally discredited now, and nothing he says people believe anymore, because it is totally not true that Moses, I've been sitting in the party executive for a long time, since 1983. I've been in the party executive of the party and in the central committee of the party since 1979. And I have never heard Nagamutu say anything at all about any wage increase and salary increase, and that he was not going to take any of that. I've never heard any protests from Nagamutu. In fact, from the time I knew him in the party and the Mera where he worked in the PYO and so forth, he was always fighting for money. Mm-hmm. That is what the memory I have of him. So when he's now trying to portray himself with clean hands and so forth, I don't think it's a true picture, and that is coming out. That is now coming out. The way he travels, the long amount of line of vehicles, they came out to that this is the man who fought for the wage increase that the government got. That is what came out in some of the things that he get up and said no, that he has to get more money than the Attorney General, that he can't accept less money than the Attorney General. When there is a history of how the Attorney General was paid. That happened since the time of Bonham, when he wanted to put one of the prominent lawyers in the country. That no, it wasn't Shahabadin. After Shahabadin, okay. And he had to make him Chief Justice and make him Attorney. Wanted to make him Attorney General, so he had to pay him a salary that was more than what the Prime Minister was getting, and that came down the line. But now Nagamutu is insisting that can't happen. He got to get more money. All this talk about him trying to be modest and trying to pretend to be living. So he couldn't go in Sam Hines' house. The house had come with Sam Hines, lived as Prime Minister for 23 years. He didn't want to go in because he said it wasn't fit for him. So they had to spend tens of millions of dollars to fix it up for Nagamutu. So all the nonsense that he's talking, I mean, it's just absolute nonsense and just part of the whole charade about creating an attack on the PPP as far as corruption is concerned.
The last Thursday, after 2 months, the annual recess Parliament reconvened, and we heard the President went there to address Parliament. But then we had a lot of demonstration outside of the Parliament. And then us from the PPP side also, we demonstrated in Parliament. But people like Nagamutu and other people are saying that this is the first time that this was hooliganism. I see the President describing it as vulgarism and things like that. Now,
absolute nonsense. I think it was legitimate protest. You violated the constitution. This is the kind of people we're dealing with. These are people who stamped and trampled on our constitution by doing what they did, and then they're describing our legitimate process as vulgar. It's absolute nonsense, and I think it was a legitimate process, and no other time in our history that we had such terrible violation of the Constitution. So I think that the actions were justified, and we didn't go and burn down. There was no burning down of any the city as they would have done. In their time, there was no killing of people. We protested in the highest forum of the land that the President was coming to address the Parliament, making a political speech anyhow, not even making a speech about policies, and talking about policies and the direction of the government. And he expects that the PPP members of Parliament should sit down and just listen to him politely in what he has done. But let me just say too, that all of these talk about Parliament and the good behavior in Parliament, these are things that happen in dictatorial countries. The countries where you have the most orderly of parliaments, like North Korea, those are the countries you have extremely good behavior. That is what Ranger and them want for our society. In Japan, in South Korea, in many other parts, in the United Kingdom, and all over the place, these are just normal actions that members of parliament do when they want to express themselves. So in some of these parliaments they have that, we don't have that. We have our decorum is much far better than any of those things. But when they talk about order, it's a mentality, it's a military mentality, and we know that we have the government that we have is dominated by military people, and therefore we have a military government in civilian clothing in our country, and they are the people who like order. They don't want to have debates. They have to speak. Why they put a speaker in the National Assembly, and you can talk about that far more than me because you were there now, that shuts down debate and does not encourage debates, because in the name of order, in the name of decency. But what they're doing is indecent. Tens of 10,000 sugar workers will lose their jobs right across the private sector. Private people are, which is not even being reported. Hundreds, if not thousands of people are losing their job. The unemployment is going up. Starvation is once again creeping into our country, and they're telling us to be decent. I think that we have been very decent, and we have been protesting legitimately. We have not burned any building down. We have not killed anyone. We just express ourselves in a proper manner. So other nonsense, I would say, what they're talking about.
Under all the PPP presidents, from Comachelli coming back right onto your tenure in office, we have seen economic growth in our country, and the growth not only was artificial, but the growth was trickled down to people, where people's standard of living were higher and things like that. But it seems that this government has an intent now of closing some very important sectors that we have depended on for centuries to bring in foreign revenue into our country. Sectors that have contributed significantly to the GDP of our country. And they are now putting the egg in one basket, waiting for oil in 2020. Your view on that, as an economist?
I would say that it is, the government seems to lack vision. They have absolutely vision. Look at what they have been doing. All they've been doing is cutting ribbons, opening a lot of the things that the projects that were on stream with the PPP civic government in place, and doing a lot of big soiree party and so forth. There's nothing that they can point to in the 2.5 years that they have been in government that they have helped the productive sector in our country. In fact, they have put taxes. They've gone with VAT, put VAT on machinery in agriculture and in mining. So the small miners and so forth are going to be badly affected. People in agriculture are being affected already. They put, and that is discouraging production. They've gone and take money. Remember that I heard on like in the West Babis and so forth, they went and put in, people got to pay license to plant their yard.
Yes,
Not plant their a special farm.
Kitchen garden.
Kitchen garden. The jackass cart man has to pay license now for it. And this man, now they're coming, spending millions of dollars, putting billboards all over the place about a tax-free budget. When they put on more than 200 taxes already since they've been in government, and stifling, they're actually stifling the production within the country. Sugar production is going down, rice production is going down, and the only production that is up at the moment, a little bit, is gold. That is what the economy is pushing on ahead on. But the whole problem is governance is very important too in the economy. How you manage the country. There's a direct link. Comachelli used to always say that there can be no sustained social and economic development of any society if you don't have political democracy. And these people are undermining political democracy. Nobody has a say. Look at, I mean, which government do the things that they do? For instance, some of you will recall, on the west coast where we in, I think it's Litchfield, where when I was president, we give farmers, landless farmers, we give them land so that they can plant.
Seafield.
In Seafield. These people revoked, they had to go to court. They revoked these people's land. And to what? To give it to a PNC group in the area. Revoke their land. And that is what they're doing. They are alienating people, using racial and political type of discrimination to alienate the people, and that is causing a big slump. That is having a big impact on the economy and the great slowdown that we are seeing in the economy. And they have no plans. You remember, even the president is hiding from the press. He doesn't hold any press conference. He feels insecure that he can't answer the question that the press will put to him. Now, I can't imagine you're the president of a country and you have all the information flowing to you and you're afraid to speak to the press. This is the first president that I have known that is afraid to speak to the press, because I think he's afraid that he will look, maybe he might look foolish if the press asks him a question and he's supposed to know as head of state and he doesn't know, because he seems to be living in a bubble and away from how things are happening. All presidents were glad to have the opportunity to speak to the press. So he has a control, kind of, even there. When somebody asked, he said, look, I saw a signboard with you and Nagamoto picture by the Starbucks market and talking about job creation. What plans do you have to create job apart from I was going to buy my cocoa price? He said that that's what the government can give people work. They didn't ask him for the government to give work, but she asked him what were the policies they're putting in place to have job creation. But he immediately said the government can't give anybody work, and they should go and cook and sell cocoa price and pepper sauce and
breadfruit chip
and plantain chip and breadfruit chip. This is the policy. This is the vision that they have for this country. So all they're doing is having a good time, just like they did in the 60s when the PPP left them with the best economy in the country. In a short while, they started to spend it out, run it down, and run our country to the bottom of the ladder. It's the same thing that they're doing, and oil will not save them. There are many, many countries in the world that has oil where you have governance issues, like Nigeria, like many other
right next door,
Venezuela, some countries in the Middle East, some of the wars and so forth that are taking place there. And it is not saving them. So governance has a lot to do. And if they think that automatically an oil will help them, I think they're beating a dead horse. And another point to be made about oil is that oil is losing gradually. It still is one of the most important products, but it's gradually losing its strategic importance. As we talk about climate change and so forth, many countries very soon there will be no cars using gasoline and dieseline on the road anymore in some countries. In Europe already, in places like Netherlands, they don't have a lot of these things that are already in place. You have a lot of power stations will not be using these type of fuels. A lot of alternative energies and science and technology is developing in that rapid way. So when oil used to reach more than $100 and $150 a barrel, it is unlikely, very, very unlikely, that the price of oil will go back to those things once again. In fact, the general tendency would be in the opposite direction. I believe that is why ExxonMobil is working very hard to try to get oil up before it loses more of its strategic importance and it becomes uneconomical to expend a lot of this money in this direction. So, and even if you look at the country that are doing well, where they have oil, you will see that they are doing it not only using the oil for their own purposes, but most of them got hydroelectricity, got other forms of generating electricity, and they are spending money on agriculture, food security, using agriculture with cheap energy to have better yield and better agro-industrial type of complex. This is what we were planning, in the direction that we were doing when we were moving towards Amila. But these people, they are so short-sighted. They scrap Amila just because it was a PPP civic project. That is the only reason.
You just talk about the impact that about job creation and also about a number of persons who were dismissed from 2015 since this government took office. We have witnessed a trend continue, a trend that started in 2015 where the young Armenian people then who your government employed, and they were getting a salary plus they were helping the community that one. And then 2 days ago I saw the GTA, the Ghana Tourism Authority, a young bright person, Harold Singh, right politician. I see that they will not renew his contract again. But it seems that there is a trend that young bright people, especially people who they feel affiliated to the PPP or who they feel are in one race group, they are dismissing, and the trend keep continue. And then the president went the last visit, not this one, the last visit to New York, he said that he told the people them over there, the diaspora, that we don't need barrel, we need brains. But you got the brains right in the country and not making use of the brains.
Well, that's one of the, I mean, look at many of the people that they sent home, very brilliant people, very highly qualified people and so forth that they sent home. For no reason, just political persecution that they are engaged in. But they're not very serious people. I mean, look at what they did to Gaisuko when they got into the government. Some of the people that they put in there, they have to lift them up the steps to go to work. They got to take them up, the people are in the 90s and 80s and so forth. Now, I'm not saying that these people didn't make a contribution to the show industry, but I don't think they have a contribution now to make, because I think their knowledge has become probably obsolete, or even if it's not obsolete, the stock of managers that you have in Gaisuko are now far ahead of where they were before. So you don't need to have, I mean, give them a good pension and let them relax. But you burden it with millions of dollars you taxing this industry with, unless this is a strategy on their part to shut the industry and put more burden on the industry. And that is what has been happening in almost every sector. They're going for huge bureaucracy, paying people. Look, for instance, I give you an example. This project that was done in the e-governance project, that unit was 8 persons, and they brought in an expanded e-government project under the PPP civil government on time and on budget. You know how many people are working it now? More than 100. More than 100. Yes, they dismissed some of the people that were working there, and you have more than 100 people now in this e-governance doing what? The work has been finished. The infrastructure has been put down already. Now it is to function. You need a small group to keep servicing it and see it's working well. Why do you have to have more than 100 people in that unit right now? This is what they're having. This is the way they're managing this country for friends and comrades and family, and shutting their eyes to corruption and all type of things that is taking place. That's called total nepotism as its highest classical area.
Just before I see the operator signal that we are about program time, but I want you to give a perspective on this. There seems to be, from the government side, especially people like Trackman and the president and so on, whenever they speak, they always say that look, nobody was sugar. We will take care of those employment when this oil sector come into being. Now you got Wales Estate closed. Rosal and Skeldon will, Rosal and Enmore will be closed this year, and then Skeldon will be privatized. Now you got thousands of workers on the 3 estate that will close at the end of this year, will lose their job. Then you got Skeldon, the privatization. If a private buyer buy it, they would not keep that number of persons there. What you see, how you see the future of these people? Would they be able to survive and sustain the family? Because the economy right now is down. The private sector is reeling from this economy. We are not seeing any job creation. We are not seeing any new investment.
So all that you see is suffering of people. All that you see ahead, it's be very, very difficult days ahead for people. And the oil sector is a highly capital intensive sector. Very highly capital intensive. It does not employ a lot of people within the industry itself. And then from what we are seeing, that there will be no big spin-off in other jobs like making petroleum jelly all of other things, because they said they're not even setting up a refinery here.
All the raw material,
all of that will be exported to some other place to be refined, and you will not have a refinery here. So the amount of jobs that will be creating in the society will be very minimal. They will be collecting more taxes and so forth, for sure. But we know the nature of these people from what we've seen. I mean, if you can pay $14 million a month for a bottom house bond in Charleston, you have an idea of the nature of the people you're dealing with. So what we will have developed in this country, and what Chelly Jagan had been warning about what was taking place in Latin America, the same thing will happen here. The pyramid will get sharper. You will have a few people, because those in government with corrupt practices and so forth will steal a lot and get filthy rich, and the bottom people, even though we have oil sitting on billions of barrels of oil, our people will be pauperized in the society.
Viewers out there, you are looking at an interview with former President and former General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, President Donald Ramotar. About program time, President Ramotar, before I close, your final word to people in Region 5 and 6.
Well, I'm very happy to have had this opportunity to talk with you. I hope in the future that we can have more opportunity to engage with each other. But just to say that these are difficult times, and these are the times that we must not allow. These are the times we need to give a little bit more support to the PPP in every way that you can, to support the party as we fight to defend our freedom, because nothing is more important than freedom, and we will not be able to achieve anything in an atmosphere of dictatorship and undemocratic practices in our society. So I'm calling on you to let us all work together to ensure that we save our country from having history repeating itself.
Let me take this opportunity to thank the former President, the former General Secretary of our party, President Ramotar, and I hope President Ramotar will come more often to this program. Thank you very much. Let me thank you very much, our dear viewers, for having us for the last 40 minutes or so in your living room. A very good evening.